So we're going to start out with this panel. It's been renamed if you're looking in your program. It was about Kickstarter, but not everyone on this panel did use crowdfunding to get their project off the ground. So we're calling this Life After Prototype. What happens after you've figured out what your service, what your product is? Where do you go from there? And in this one, you're going to hear from people who have started solar financing, healthcare advice, concert tracking. You're going to hear how they discovered and then pursued their respective opportunities. And I also want to remind you, the Twitter stream is pretty interesting on this one. So if you haven't been following it, it's hashtag W2Pitch, and be sure to follow @Women2, which is the Twitter handle for the conference. There's some pretty good side conversations going on there, and it's a great way for you to get to know someone. Maybe you've looked at the attending list and you want to track someone down. It's also a great stalking opportunity, yes. So I want to introduce Lora Kolodny. She is a tech journalist who covers startups and VC for the Wall Street Journal. She's come from San Francisco to do this panel, and she knows all about business competitions because she used to write the New York Times blog, The Prize. So please welcome Lora and her panelists. I feel like I'm like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Please welcome Lora and her panelists. Yay, there they are. Okay, good.
How amazing is it to have not just half, but a majority and all of the leaders by example in high-tech fields speaking here female? I mean, it's like, I have to thank Women Too for arranging that. This is the first time in reporting on business for 10 years that's ever happened for me. Thank you guys for showing up. Do you mind, everyone here is a maker, and so they have physical products. They're not just shipping software, although software is an important component of what they do. Can you guys just introduce yourselves and maybe sum up what your companies do in about a tweet?
I'm Debbie Sterling, and I'm the founder of GoldieBlox. It's a book series and construction toy designed for girls.
I'm Liz Salcedo. I'm the founder of Everpurse. We built a technology that allows you to charge your cell phone inside your purse.
I'm Alice Brooks, co-founder of Meka, and we make Roominate, which is the wired, hands-on dollhouse building kit for girls.
Hi, I'm Limor Freed. I'm founder and engineer of Adafruit Industries. We do open source hardware, manufacturing, and electronics here in New York.
So you guys, at this point, you're all shipping product, is that right? Show of hands if you're shipping product.
We're still manufacturing.
Okay, fantastic. These are some images we have here of their prototypes, or in the one case of Everpurse, it's the, I guess, at what point is this a production prototype that you've shown us here? This is the Everpurse concept. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in this image?
Yeah, so this is an image of an Everpurse, and you're putting your phone inside, and it's about to charge.
Okay, so it's not just someone taking their phone out of the bag. What does it look like? What does the tech look like inside of this thing?
Built in behind the lining of the purse is a battery system that charges your phone, and then when you put your purse on top of an inductive charging mat, the mat recharges your purse. Okay,
can you tell me, why is this considered a tech company? It just sounds like you could throw in like a Griffin Technologies accessory into your purse and kind of sew it up and, call it a fashion day. Why do you consider yourself a tech entrepreneur?
Well, there are a lot of battery and different charging technologies. So what we did is actually take a lot of different components that are out there and improve upon the concepts. So we had to do a lot of research and a lot of modification and a lot of prototyping to figure out and play with polarities of magnets and how to condense the efficiencies and make it a better charging experience. So a lot went into figuring out how to charge your phone throughout the day.
Okay, and how are you guys financing the production of this?
Entirely through Kickstarter.
Okay, so 3 out of 4 of these entrepreneurs got started through crowdfunding, and 1 is a dorm room entrepreneur, right?
Kickstarter didn't exist at the time. We started in 2005, and there was no such thing as crowdfunding at the time. I mean, we did take orders with PayPal and stuff. I think if I was going to start my company now, I would definitely take advantage of crowdsourcing. It's very powerful and can be used to get into manufacturing much, much faster. It took me many years to get up to speed and get the equipment and the technologies and that financing. So I think Kickstarter, it what it sounds like, it basically gets you up and running in like 3 months, not 2 years.
Kids these days have it so easy. Okay, Roominate. What are we looking at here? This is sort of the before-after.
Yeah, this
set.
is our prototype that when we launched our Kickstarter, this is where our prototype was at. And then in the after.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in that image?
So this is a room. There's a circuit up. You see the fan at the top? That's a motor. And what we're trying to do here for girls age 6 to 10 is get them building, get them creating. So they build the whole room, they design the furniture that goes inside, and they get their first exposure to putting together a circuit. And after they do that, they can customize the entire thing with decorations and tell their story around that. But we realized while we were doing our Kickstarter, and as we started to hit scales that we weren't anticipating, that we needed to do redesign to make our processes more efficient and be able to reach more customers. So we changed up the design and made it more modular.
I'm clicking and it's not going. Okay, here we go.
We made it more modular. Oh no, that's. There we go. Yeah, so we changed up the pieces to make them more modular, so there were more opportunities for girls to be creators and makers, and really to come up with anything that they wanted to make. Right here is a standard room, which is a bedroom, but we've been inspired by the girls that play with it, and they'll make things like restaurants, cupcake shops with spinning tables for the cupcakes, or anything that they can imagine.
Let me ask you the same question I was just asking Everpurse team here. Why is this a tech company and not a toy company?
So one of the core mission with our company is to inspire young girls to get interested in STEM fields and turn them into engineers if they want to do that. And while we were creating the toy, we did a lot of iteration very, very rapidly. We did user testing all the time where we'd put whatever current iteration we had in front of the girls and then go back and use rapid prototyping techniques to improve on the product very quickly. So we'd go to the laser cutter and change the pieces completely around, or buy off-the-shelf electronics components and make new versions of our toy.
Okay, and do you have intellectual property around this, or is this mostly from off-the-shelf components?
So the way that we put it together and how the whole concept comes together, and in the design and the pieces, we have intellectual property there.
When you were approaching the crowdfunding moment, that pitch, how did you make sure, to keep those IP considerations taken care of, to keep all your intellectual property and concepts safe?
When we were approaching crowdfunding, I think in the back of our mind, we knew we were going to be doing a bit of redesign. So when we laid out our product in front of people, we weren't really afraid of them copying what we were doing because we knew that we were going to be improving it and making it a lot better on that initial offering. So
just put it all out there.
Yeah.
Don't be shy. Okay, let's see about GoldieBlox. So this seems like a kindred concept. What are we looking at in this slide?
So this was the very first GoldieBlox prototype, and the insight that I had in trying to get little girls interested in building and construction, I went out and tested a bunch of existing construction toys and tried to find out why aren't they as interested, what's missing. And I learned very quickly, all the girls I was playing with, I'd ask them, well, if you don't like this, what's your favorite toy? And they'd run upstairs and come back down with a book. And I started to do research on it and found how much girls love reading and storytelling and have really strong verbal skills. So my concept was book plus building. And in this first prototype, you'll see there was a book on the inside and a frame around it where you could build across the pages. And I learned very quickly after testing that one that no kid wanted to undo what they had built to flip the page. So I went on to, if you want to flip to the final. So this is where the product ended up, and it's a construction kit and a book series starring GoldieBlox, the girl engineer. And as she goes on adventures, she builds stuff to solve problems and help her little friends. So the set comes with little character figurines, wheels, axles, ribbon, and a book series that's available also as ebook downloads.
So this isn't just analog, it's got an ebook component. What other technology is part of this?
Currently, just the ebook, although potentially more stuff down the road.
Okay, great. So are all of you, you're all founders? Are any of you also CEOs? Okay, that's a pretty special thing. Like, I don't know if anyone, I'm pretty sure this room is interested and saw this, but Dow Jones Venture Source did a huge survey of over 20,000 companies and found only 7% of these venture-backed companies had executives who were female, and basically they outperformed their peers. That did not include female executives, which is kind of great. But of the companies, just 1.3% had female original founders. So I'd love to hear that you guys are changing that. Well done. Are there any tips and tricks that you guys would offer? What was the best thing you did to either launch your crowdfunding campaign or get started, get the pre-sales, get the orders and the interest in there? Can you each give some chestnuts, some wisdom here?
I'll start. The best thing that we did was to get our product in front of people physically right at the beginning of the campaign. So we were at Maker Faire in San Mateo in California the same weekend that we launched our Kickstarter, and we were able to reach our end users right away. So we had a booth where little girls were piled in there playing with the toy for hours, and we got parents who hadn't heard of Kickstarter. They saw the toy right away, and when they were asking their daughters to leave, the girls were saying, "No, I'm not done yet, Mom, I don't want to leave." And so they would take out their phones, pay for it on their phone, and show their daughter, "Here, I bought the toy, now can we go and see the rest of the exhibits?" And then it also was useful there were bloggers at that event, so they came and we started getting press from there.
So it was getting out there physically too, not just
yeah.
online.
Don't rely on just getting it to spread over the internet. If you can get people physically to love what you're doing, they will spread it for you.
Okay, and this is a question for Limor, who is the predecessor to Kickstarter and
Like
other
the dinosaur.
other crowdfunding sites. So let's take a look at what your company offers. This was an early prototype for...
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting because, I come from an electrical engineering background, but I had never in school you don't actually learn how to build anything. And so I'm stuck with this, well, I have all these ideas and they're conceptual and I have to manufacture them, but I have absolutely no idea how you actually manufacture goods. I had no idea how to get in touch with a contract manufacturer, how to arrange for prototype samples, first run, second run, et cetera. And so what I ended up doing is instead designing my products as kits. And so you would get the bag of parts and you would assemble it, because that was something I was familiar with. I understood, like, I could kit these up very easily, put it in a bag and ship it. So that step of actually getting the part to the customer. So this is an early kit, and it's actually an iPhone charger kit. And the hard part here is that Apple keeps changing the way they do their charging protocols. And so, like, we spent a lot of time tearing apart chargers and reverse engineering the technology that they use or the techniques they use, because we didn't want to sign the NDAs with Apple. So that was kind of fun.
How many iPhones and other devices do you think you've purchased from Apple on behalf of Adafruit?
Well, we definitely have like one of everything, because we do have to test. But that's good. Like, we use them in the company. We use an iPad in the production area, or like an iPhone for FaceTime stuff. So we have like one of everything. And we also, when we have friends visit and they have like some weird Android phone, we're like, let's see if it works.
It sounds like you guys started a company as an excuse to buy a bunch of great Apple toys, and then GoldieBlox over here started one to be able to buy a bunch of Legos and Tinker Toys and stuff, which all sound pretty appealing. So is that an Altoids tin?
Yeah, it goes in an Altoids tin. Because enclosure design is actually the hardest part of electrical engineering, and that's another thing that you don't learn. You should always pick your enclosure first, because otherwise you have to pay like $20,000 in tooling fees.
Wow.
So if you pick an enclosure that you don't have to mill out, and do an injection mold, you can save like tons of money, especially if you're doing a kit. So Altoids tins, boxes already exist. I'm designing a watch that uses a watch band that is already in the market. So that can save you tons of NRE costs.
Do you know what is the typical age of the users of your kits who are assembling these? Looks kind of complex.
This is actually a beginner kit, and we've had 6-year-olds build it, 8-year-olds build it. We have grandmothers who build them and give them away to Christmas to their grandkids. I mean, we have pretty much everybody.
Is this one still on sale?
Oh yeah, it's a Minty Boost kit. Yeah, we've sold maybe 30,000 of these.
Okay, and what is this later product?
So then people kept coming back to us and saying, well, we really like your kit, and this is part of the user feedback stuff that is great about open source hardware. And they said, but I want to have a solar powered version. And so I was like, well, okay, it's like, you can't just plug a solar panel in, it's a little more complicated. But that feedback forced me to go and redesign this, and so I spent a lot of time designing a high-efficiency solar charger, which is actually interesting because this is something that is not there is no off-the-shelf solution for this, because either you have a gigantic solar field, or you're getting something cheap that's made overseas, and they don't care how efficient it is. So actually being able to go in and engineer something really well, and then release that as open source is part of what Adafruit does.
Great, and this is a question maybe, I mean, it could be for any of you, but I'm really curious about Everpurse. How are you going to scale from the inspiration to becoming a long-term sustainable business?
Well, we know that charging your cell phone is a problem that a lot of people, particularly a lot of women, have, which is why we've gotten so much interest. So while we may be limited by our initial purse design, our goal is to get it out there in a lot of different brands and make it accessible no matter what your style is. So eventually we'll move on to not just marketing our own product, but helping other people market their product with Everpurse in it.
Licensing, partnerships, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay, great. How about the rest of you guys? What do you do once you've got a good prototype? What's next? That must be sort of a terrifying moment.
Well, I chose to go on Kickstarter with my prototype because I wanted to really prove the concept and see if more people besides my parents thought that it was a good idea. And now that the Kickstarter community and parents out there validated it.
How much did you ask for, and how much did you end up raising in your campaign?
I asked for $150,000, and I ended up raising $285,000.
Okay. And has that been enough to get from prototype and inspiration to product to ship?
Yeah, no, that was more than enough to produce our minimum order quantity of 5,000 units, and so much more that now we need to produce more. We're producing 10,000. And yeah, we're going through that right now. We're doing all the little final tweaks, and we're shipping it out in February. And next step to build it into more than just a Kickstarter project, but a business. I've been spending the last few weeks and continuing meeting with potential retail channel partners. So they reached out to us, a lot of them, because they saw the Kickstarter. It's been amazing. My plan all along was to exhibit at the New York Toy Fair here at the Javits Center in February, and that was going to be my wholesale launch. But because of doing Kickstarter, they've all been reaching out to me way before. So we're trying to rush and possibly get on the shelves by March.
Congratulations. That sounds fortunate and rewarding for some hard work. What did you put into the pitch effort? Like, how long did it take you to create this successful pitch, and what did you include in your Kickstarter?
Oh, in the Kickstarter pitch? The hardest part was shooting the video because I wanted to be myself in it, because it's not just the product, it's about me being a female engineer and my journey that I've been on. And so I actually got all dressed up, got my makeup done, shot a video, and I came out so stiff I had to trash the whole thing and reshoot it sitting on the floor of my apartment after about a half a bottle of wine. It was the only way I was able. That was like my pitch process. But I hired someone to work for me full time, and we started 6 weeks early, coming up with an entire PR strategy. And we set up an exclusive with The Atlantic and TechCrunch to write articles about GoldieBlox and put them out on the day that we launched, and it made a huge difference. The other thing that I did was I met another Kickstarter celebrity, Tim Schafer, who's a video game developer, and he raised over $3.5 million on Kickstarter, and I convinced him to be in our video as a cameo with his daughter, and then he tweeted it to his 90,000 backers. So all of that happened on the first day, so I definitely tried to stack the deck.
That sounds like some good takeaways. Invest and think about PR strategically, connect with other people in the Kickstarter community who have succeeded, and kind of bask in their glory a little bit. Yeah. What about, let's hear from some other teams. What did it take to make your initial launch and campaign succeed?
think I touched on this earlier, so.
Yeah. Well, definitely PR was really important, as well as getting a physical product out there. We've sent out a lot of prototypes out into the wild and asked people just to give us their feedback and tweet about it. But we also have taken prototypes around and we videotaped people in a video that we called the wow factor, because just seeing a picture of it really doesn't communicate what it does and how incredible it is to hear your phone turn on when it starts to charge, when it drops in your purse. And that video actually was way more successful and had way more views than our Kickstarter video. So that was really important, just showing people what it can really do for you.
Okay, great. I don't know if we have time for audience Q&A, but I hope so. Could one of the conference staff let me know if we have time for that and how you wanted to run it? Maybe pass the mic around out there or gather some questions by tweet or paper. As far as Roominate, are you manufacturing everything in the U.S.? How are you managing the manufacture of these dollhouse-like
We're doing our
toys?
manufacturing in China. We actually just got back a couple days ago from China and can report that things are going very smoothly and we're on track for holiday 2012 delivery. But one of the challenges that we came up to during our Kickstarter is when we changed the design and wanted to change how we were going to manufacture and make it more scalable, we had to find a manufacturer while our Kickstarter was going. So we ended up working through an introduction from a mentor, we found a contract manufacturer in the US who could help us get our low order number pushed up to the front of the line at the factory in China and get it done cost effectively, but also get it done well at a toy manufacturing plant. So,
Can I ask, how much did you ask for and how much did you raise when you ran the campaign?
we asked for $25,000 and we raised $86,000.
And have you raised additional funding since then? That sounds slight compared to some of the other numbers being bandied
Yes.
around.
So that amount, the 86, was enough to produce our orders, but then that was it. We'd be done. We'd be back at zero. So we raised some angel funding, which is, we're not disclosing the exact number, but our strategy there was we wanted to raise enough money from angels so that we could start the scaled production and have it be a sustainable model for us so that if everything went well and we produced this product and then sold beyond our Kickstarter number, we'd be able to self-sustain and grow slowly, at least with a small amount of money.
Do you have any regrets vis-a-vis the number? I mean, do you wish you would have done anything differently with your campaign?
Yeah, I think we, in our campaign, we kind of rushed into it, actually. So we didn't have a lot of plans laid out from the beginning. We just knew that we wanted to move quickly. We've been moving quickly. We have a mentor, Mike Cassidy, who says that speed is the ultimate startup weapon. So we just move quickly, and sometimes we don't plan as much as we should. I think that if we were going to go back and do it again, we'd spend a little more time planning and maybe go for a higher number. I'm not sure. I mean, it's nice to hit your number pretty quickly, too.
Interesting. So it's kind of a trade-off. If you hit your number quickly, there's sort of a positive feeling that the Kickstarter community is supporting your project, your creativity, but you might not have enough to get to the next level of marketing and production, potentially. Interesting. Does anyone else have any regrets about how they approached funding or getting started?
Well, I actually have one more thing to say about that. One thing to be careful about with Kickstarters, you don't want to set your goal too high where if you surpass that by a lot, you're not going to be able to produce for the people that have committed to you. So you want to make sure, this is something that we heard from people that had done Kickstarters before us that we talked to, is be really careful that you're going to be able to deliver on what you promise, and otherwise your backers are not going to be happy, and they're your top priority with Kickstarter.
Do you guys ever just feel like those software people have it so easy because they're just shipping bits and bytes? What are some of the complications of having an actual product, a physical good, and what are some of the benefits of having that?
Well, manufacturing is just its whole, there's so many complications that come up that you have no idea about until they happen.
What are a couple you would warn people about who are considering making physical goods? Right now, the maker thing is so hot. Everybody wants a 3D printer and they all want to get started making physical objects. There's a lot of venture attention being paid to consumer electronics startups again and hardware companies in general. What are some things you would warn entrepreneurs about just to be careful about, to know and understand before they get into it?
I could speak on this briefly, but I love making physical products, and that's my background, product design. I love something tangible, but no, it's really hard. You have to invest thousands of dollars in these steel molds, and once they're made, you can't really change them, and you run the risk of pumping out all of this stuff to later find out, oh, there was something wrong with it, and maybe it gets returned, or maybe you have to go back and make another really expensive mold. So it's really capital intensive. And then even after all of that, at least in the toy industry, the margins traditionally aren't that great, so you have to find a way to be price competitive, particularly if you want to end up eventually going mass, which I do. So it's a tough business.
Those are some key considerations. I also want to hear from Limor, because you looked really enthusiastic about that.
I always look enthusiastic. There are a couple things to watch out for. One of the things that I do see kind of over and over again, and it's because people, I think engineers, especially and product designers, they really are so excited about their product that they want to make the price really low so that everyone can afford it, and it's a really good feeling. However, I've seen it bite people really badly. So, if you think that you can sell it for $50, but by the time you actually get to that, you don't realize that there's these massive NRE costs or like expediting fees or customs fees. Setting the price too low is really dangerous because you can't raise prices. But if you set it too high, you can always discount or lower prices later. So that's like one thing that I try to tell people, especially their first time making a product, because they don't, it's very different from making one or two in your home, the prototypes, to getting 10,000 made. It's not, it doesn't scale the same way. Even though it gets cheaper, there's more upfront costs that you aren't considering. That's kind of the biggest one that I definitely see people have to deal with. But I don't think that hardware is so much, I mean, it is hard, but I don't think that we should be jealous of software engineers. First off, anything that makes it more difficult for people to compete with you is in your best interest. So I don't have to worry about other people coming in because I know how hard this is. So I don't have to, anyone who has a startup, there's like 8 different Pinterests. Like it's everyone can come in and compete with you, everybody. Everybody. So whereas with hardware, you don't have to worry that much about competition. It's actually not as big of a deal.
I like the sunshine. That's a really good
Which is true,
view.
right? I mean, it is. It's like, think of how hard it is for everybody else to get these molds made, to go to an event and show kids this stuff, to get the certifications required. This is very difficult.
Although that may be changing with enough 3D printers entering the market. Here in New York, there's MakerBot. There are a number of others, Strata. I want to give the audience time to ask questions. So if anyone has questions, now would be a good time to reach the mic. I'm wondering if you guys think, I was just touching on the sort of nascent popularity of 3D printing and other things that are fueling the maker scene, including your own products here. So that's pretty fascinating, the kits and the like.
Laura, we've got one back here. If you want to take a question.
Yeah, let's take one from the audience. And I'll put this in the back of your heads, but let's address this one first. Is the maker thing going to be as big as the blogger thing was when publishing was democratized? And just put that in your pipe and smoke it for a minute, but let's hear from the audience.
Hi. I'm Tammy. Hi. I'm in town from Los Angeles. When we talk about software products, we talk about MVP, minimum viable product, and very often it's a hard thing for startups to focus on that one thing that they're going to do. And obviously, you focused eventually on one thing that you were going to produce. How hard is that when it comes to the actual physical hardware products?
So am I understanding this? You're wondering how hard that the really crystallized focus is?
The ability to choose what you're going to build. Because on web, you can iterate a lot easier and you can go and go and go and you can change it. But it's still very important to choose that one thing that you're going to build. I wanted to know what the process was like for hardware.
Well, I think it's still important to think about pivoting. I don't think that you lose that when you have a hardware product. It just takes a little longer and you have to think about it a little harder because the consequences are that much greater. But we had a lot of people come and ask us, you have a product for women, well, what about me? I'm a guy. I don't want to carry a purse. And really we had to say, that's great. Maybe we'll get to that down the line. We have some ideas, but we really have to focus on one thing at a time. And it really came down to what do other people want to see, and what audience do I want to reach. So it really wasn't that hard to narrow it down, but it is hard to maintain your focus when other people tell you what they want, and it's not exactly what you've made.
And I'll add that you guys got to see the before pictures of a lot of our hardware products. I mean, mine was thread spools and a pegboard from the hardware store and little clay characters that cost maybe $20. So, and I tested that with hundreds of kids. And that gave me really inexpensive but easy way to test tons of ideas before I made molds out of the best ones.
Paper prototyping, if you will.
Yeah, in our case, we were using a lot of foam core and hot glue in our first prototypes, but how we decided on which were the minimum viable features in our product were we just put them in front of girls and we looked for what parts of it got them so excited and got them yelling at their parents to stay away. And that was, in our case, for the electronics, we had all of these things that we wanted to do because what we really want to do with this toy is expose young girls to things that they're not getting exposed to in their other toys. And it was hard to cut down the number of electronics, but we had to do that for reasons of safety testing and cost and everything. And we ended up settling on the motor for the first kit because the first time that the girls plugged the circuit in together and had a little fan on the motor and just stared at it hypnotized, that was a priceless moment that happened time and time again. And so we knew that that was something that we had to absolutely include.
So girls like spinny things?
They've never made something spin before, like automatically. A lot of them have never put batteries in something on their own. So they're just so amazed that they can make something move.
That sounds fantastic. Fun market testing. Any other questions from the audience? Here's one.
Yes, hi, Natasha Green. I'm actually a full-time teacher and dean at a high school, but I'm trying to do a startup, although it's in the tech realm called We Intervene. But what I really want to know, because you guys are entrepreneurs in your own right, is that usually there's a point when you decide to keep on going, or you decide that I'm not going to do this anymore. And my interest is, like, when was that point for each one of you guys? Because we all reach success differently. Likewise, we all have different points of questioning our existence in the product we have.
Is that kind of when did you quit your day job?
Yeah, actually, I did have a day job, and I was doing the stuff on the side. And I just started noticing that half of my time, 3/4 of my time, was spent doing customer fulfillment and designing and engineering. And then at some point, it's like, well, this makes sense because I have enough funds, saved up for me to go with this full time. And I was young enough that if it didn't work out, it could always go back into the market. So
that's from the bootstrap business perspective.
Yes, that's a bootstrap stuff because I had to work and also slowly add more and more products to the store. So it took a year or so until I had enough money because you use the profits from the first round to pay for the second round. So it actually takes a couple rounds of manufacturing at small scales to become self-sufficient. So with Kickstarter, of course, you don't have to, which is great. So that's definitely one of the benefits of going with crowdsourcing, is you can skip that first year.
Although for Adafruit, you knew you were safely going to generate revenue. You had sales in the pipeline. You understood the market a little better. What were the considerations for the rest of you who all did crowdfunding? When did you, quote unquote, quit your day job? When was it go time?
So I didn't have a day job. I started this with my co-founder, Bettina, while we were in school at Stanford. That's where we met. And we were just very passionate about what we were doing, and we hadn't started our Kickstarter yet until after we were out of school. So we didn't really have any money, but we knew that we were going to make this happen no matter what. So it was just going for it and knowing that it's going to work out.
I was a social worker for women and children with HIV before I did this. And I actually spent a year working on our prototype on the side. We weren't really making any money because we were handing out prototypes basically for free to people to test out and give us their feedback. And it got to the point where we had so many people asking us for orders that we couldn't fulfill because we didn't have the time and we hadn't done, we weren't able to mass manufacture yet because we hadn't put everything into that we decided to go ahead and do Kickstarter. So it was basically, it was based on demand. We decided that we needed to go full scale if we were going to do it at all.
And we've heard from everyone, I think, but not from you, about how much did you ask for in your campaign and how much did you raise?
We asked for 100,000. We got that in 6 days, and we finished at 240.
Incredible. Wow. So purses for the win. And I think you should tell the men who are interested in a product, just start using purses.
The MERS, that's what we called it.
So, okay, we had time for one more audience question, I believe. Or we.
I have one, actually.
Okay.
I found it interesting that just looking at the Adafruit website, it so much says that everything is tested by you. You're very central to your business concept. And Debbie, you were saying, like, the video, you really wanted it to be about you. How much is it a bonus that there are so few women entrepreneurs out there? Is it important to put you and your personality, your womanness at the center of your getting the idea of your concept out there?
I think it maybe depends on the business, but for mine, I think that my story is so integral to it because GoldieBlox it's not about a toy. It's about creating a role model for girls in a world of Sid the Science Kid, Bob the Builder, Thomas the Train. They don't see female engineers. And so the character Goldie that I've created is, I don't know, she's kind of like a mini me, but I really want the opportunity to go out because I'm a female engineer and maybe I don't look like what people would think an engineer is supposed to look like, and that's the point.
I think when I think of like founder, like the idea of what a founder can be is I really like Walt Disney, where like clearly he didn't draw every cartoon, but he still was the creator. So, I don't ship every package anymore. I have a team of people, but people want to know that there is someone behind the product. It is not faceless to the end. There is someone behind there who tests everything or engineers something, and I review everything. So there is that personal story because, one of the cool things about having a company nowadays, especially being an entrepreneur, is you get to make it a cause. And that's very, very powerful, especially when you're dealing with competition. Everyone here is going to deal with competition at some point. If you can make your story the better cause, you will win every single time, because when people give money to a Kickstarter, they want the purse, of course, and they want the book, but they also want to be part of this story, of this cause. They want to be with you and hang out with you, even if it's like as a backer, and be part of this cause, and that cause may be engineering or teaching women electronics or making, purses that are more useful than just every other purse. So that's so important, and I think it's really great that Kickstarter makes you do a video, because it forces you to be like, okay, fine, I can't just hide behind my logo. You are the logo.
I also think because it takes so long to go from your Kickstarter concept to when someone physically has received the product, that it really matters that they feel a part of the entire process. Kickstarter really encourages that. So it was definitely important for us to communicate that the problem that led me to design Everpurse is the same problem that everyone has, and so I am just like you.
Anything to add?
Oh, yeah. I think part of why we tell our story also is just to convey the personal experience that we had that led to how we designed this toy. So for my personal story, when I was 8, I asked my dad if Santa Claus could bring me a Barbie that year, because Santa Claus hadn't been bringing me Barbies. And he's like, no Barbies in this house. And he gave me a saw, or Santa Claus gave me a saw. So, yeah, it's true. I love that saw.
Do you still have it?
I would cut up pieces of 2x4 in our little wood shop in the basement and nail them together, and actually ended up making a doll out of the wood. But I mean, so those kind of stories, the parents that we're trying to get to buy this toy, they want to make these experiences accessible to their daughters. So in telling that story, they can really connect with that and see that happening for their daughters.
Great, and quick yes/no closer, okay? Blogging software came around, publishing was democratized. It completely transformed my industry, information and media, publishing, etc. Is the maker thing going to do that for physical objects? Bigger than blogging, about the same, or no way?
I think for us here, it's awesome because I can totally see a future where girls will have a maker bot in the kitchen. They'll buy a Roominate, and then it'll be like, click here to download extra add-ons. click it, download, print it, add it, and then they can go in and tweak it and modify it. You know, it's not going to be exactly like blogging. It's going to, you know, there's going to be a lot of cool skills that people learn. And the best way to get people engineering and building stuff is to give them like a prize at the end. And if that prize is like you get to print out this cool doll, or you get to print out like an adapter for your phone for this purse, I'm for it. I think that's great. It's so much better than sitting in front of MATLAB.
I think that was a yes.
You don't think it will be bigger than blogging, or you do?
It's going to be different, but I think I definitely see a future where every school has 3D printing technology. I'm starting to hear from students. We do a show when people show up and they're like, "I'm a high school student. We have a laser cutter." And I'm like, "Wow, that is so cool!" Like when I was a kid, like I would. You know, there was one laser cutter in the entire city, right? And it was in the university. Now high schools are getting this stuff. And soon it'll be grade schools getting this stuff. And then hopefully you'll be able to go to the library and use this stuff. So it'll be democratized. It will be everywhere. And if you make hardware, or even if you make software, take advantage of it. Have stuff that people can download, print, and make, and have that be part of your brand. That's awesome. That ties them so closely, because they're like, I made this.
We have to get shorter answers for the last three. I'm sorry. We got to wrap you
Bigger or
up.
not bigger than blogging? How about just a yes or a no?
I'd have to agree with different, and I think that it's going to be really useful in just changing the way that people think about the physical world around them, and having them look at objects around them and realize that there are so many different uses for them. And with these tools, they can modify things, or they can create new things that will help them do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I just to say different too, but I do. I think that it will be. I think it will be as big. I think it will be as big as blogging, but like blogging, you know, you can throw something out there, or you can be a successful blogger. I think that you can make a spatula or a screw, or you can go ahead to tech shop and learn how to use all the tools and, you know, learn what it is to source and manufacture and ship a product to make a business out of it.
I think it could be if our education system promotes engineering education the way that everyone learns to read and write. Because everyone knows how to read and write, so anyone can do a blog. But if the STEM initiatives in the Obama administration continue and people like Roominate and GoldieBlox keep making what they're making, then absolutely people will have the education and they'll know how to do it.
Last question, how much do you guys love Ryan Gosling? Just kidding. Sorry, you guys. I'm just kidding, because we're like supposed to be women. Anyway, thank you so much. This was an amazing chance to meet all of you at once, and I'm really looking forward to covering all your businesses as they grow and continue to ship product. Thank you, guys.
And Lori, thank you so much for your awesome questions. You guys were great. Thank you.